Speaking exclusively to GB News, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has tonight outlined how she claims she will salvage this rape gang inquiry after 48 hours of complete and utter chaos. 4 grooming gang survivors have quit over concerns about the inquiry being watered down. They've also had concerns that they were being silenced, made to sign things like confidentiality agreements, and that the scope of this inquiry would be broadened to take the edge off the Pakistani Muslim element of it. There was also concerns about who would chair this inquiry, with one individual being an ex-police officer with links to the Labour Party and another being a lady who works in the social sector. Both sectors, of course, that need to be investigated as part of this inquiry. The other bit of drama, if you want to call it that, from today is that the potential chairwoman also quit today. Well, speaking to GB News exclusively tonight, a TV exclusive, I can now reveal to you what the Home Secretary has said in this lengthy statement. It is time for truth. For years, the victims were ignored. A few, this channel amongst them, listened to them and gave them a voice. But to its eternal discredit, the state in its many forms did not heed their call until it was far too late. In time, we came to know this as the grooming gang scandal, though I have never thought the name matched the scale of the evil. We must call them what they are: evil child rapists. We must acknowledge who they were too. Whilst the data is scant, and shamefully so, Baroness Louise Casey's report was clear that, quotes, disproportionate numbers of men from Asian ethnic backgrounds were amongst the suspects for group-based child sexual exploitation. Like all who read that report, I was horrified by what Baroness Casey exposed. Some of the most vulnerable people in this country were abused and exploited at the hands of predatory monsters. It was and will forever remain one of the darkest moments in our country's history. The victims and survivors were failed, both at the time of their abuse and in the many years afterwards. They were not believed, they were treated as an inconvenience. In some cases, they were even made suspects themselves. I know that the only way that we as a country can move forwards is when we finally get to the whole truth. That is why this government committed to a full statutory national inquiry. This inquiry must uncover how these crimes were allowed to happen and root out state failure wherever it occurred, by the local government, national government, policing, or elsewhere. Doing so is the very least that the victims of these hideous crimes deserve. It is essential that the victims themselves are at the heart of this inquiry. It was for that reason that we set up a victims group to support the inquiry in its inception and throughout its work. It was with a heavy heart in recent days I learned that some members have decided to step away from the group. Should they wish to return, the door will always remain open to them. But even if they do not, I owe it to them and the country to answer some of the concerns that they have raised. Firstly, this inquiry is not and will never be watered down on my watch. Its scope will not change, nor will its intent. It will be robust and rigorous. It will direct and oversee local investigations with the power to compel witnesses and summon evidence. Secondly, this inquiry will focus on grooming gangs, and that will not change. Thirdly, it will explicitly examine the ethnicity and religion of the offenders. I know that some are frustrated that they are still waiting for this inquiry to begin. I understand that frustration and I feel it myself. But I also know that we have to get this right and to take the time to do so. Crucially, we must appoint the right chair to lead this work. Unfortunately, that task has been made harder by the intense, albeit justified, pressure that will be placed upon the person who fills it. I hope and believe the wait will now not be much longer. And once the inquiry begins, the truth will follow. There will be no hiding place for those who abuse the most vulnerable in our society, nor will those who ignored victims and even covered up what occurred be shielded from the truth. A moment of reckoning will come. So that is the statement given exclusively to us here at GB News. It's TV exclusive. A couple of points just quickly that stand out to me there is there was not the desire clearly to use the turn of phrase Pakistani rape gangs. She used the broader term, quoting a previous report that had the kind of catch-all word Asian in there, and I know that winds a lot of people up. That's one takeaway from me. However, what I will say is that clearly the Home Secretary appears to be acknowledging, at least this Home Secretary appears to be acknowledging, the strength of feeling from vast numbers of the British public, especially GB News viewers and listeners, giving us that very lengthy statement directly to us. But first, I mean, this is really the bit of the show that I've been most keen to do, actually, because it's important to put the victims and the survivors right at the forefront of this. We've just been hearing from Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood responding to what has been a complete car crash few days for this rape gang inquiry. Now, speaking exclusively to GB News, Shabana Mahmood vowed that the inquiry won't be watered down, that it will be robust, it will be rigorous, and it will focus on grooming gangs, and that it will explicitly examine the ethnicity and religion of the offenders. Well, Fiona Goddard joins us now, a very brave grooming gang survivor. Fiona, thank you very, very much for joining us again. So look, I'm just going to throw it over to you, really. What is your reaction to that Shabana Mahmood statement?
I suppose there's nothing necessarily wrong with what she said. For me, it's a complete lack of recognition that the Safeguarding Minister publicly called me a liar today. There's no apology, there's no recognition. This woman is supposed to represent women and children's safety, and she has nationally called a grooming gang victim a liar, knowing that I'm not a liar either, and that I have the emails and the texts. I think for me to take anything seriously that any government official has to say, there needs to be an apology for what I have been put through today.
Just outline, to outline for my viewers and listeners, Fiona, if that's okay. So you're talking about Jess Phillips there, aren't you?
Yes.
Now I'm going to play a little clip of her in the House of Commons, which is this, and then we'll talk off the back of it, all right?
I have said that 1,000,000 times from this dispatch box, and yet the same thing gets peddled again and again.
So that was a very energised Jess Phillips in the House of Commons today. Could you outline to my viewers and listeners what she accused you of specifically, please, Fiona?
So in my resignation letter, I made public about the attempts to widen the scope and also how the inquiry would be conducted, extending it from localities to regions. She said that them claims were categorically untrue, even though she was aware of them because of personal text I'd sent to her outlining what we were being asked, and her response back to me was that she knew that the question was being asked and that she couldn't make the decision without it being consulted on. So she called me a liar while she knew the truth.
And you then took to social media today, and I think we're witnessing a little bit of that on the screen now. You then published actually an email and what appeared to me to be a phone message or something like that anyway,
yes,
of you communicating directly with her about that. So you basically... Well, I mean, I don't want to use the word liar on this show for various different legal reasons, but I mean, it would appear that she was not being entirely honest.
Yes, no, she was not. And I think it's quite concerning that she would rather try and damage the character of a survivor than take some responsibility herself. I do think Jess Phillips needs to resign. I think the only logical move forward from this point is her resignation. How can she represent women and children's best interests if she would rather try and discredit a survivor, knowing that survivor's being truthful, than take some responsibility herself?
How did it make you feel when Jess Phillips, in your view, basically accused you, a survivor, of lying?
I've been called a liar my whole life. That's part of the grooming gang scandal. She's well aware of that. I've spoken with Jess Phillips personally. She knows my circumstances. She knows my case. She knows what the services and the councils have put me through. And for her to then join on that, she has just engaged in the same corruption and covering up as the governments and the councils and the agencies have over the years. The same ones that she's tasked with trying to set up an inquiry to expose. She's just done exactly the same thing. She's called me a liar to save her own skin.
I mean, it must be unbelievably difficult for you to try to come to terms with this. And for the sake of my viewers and listeners as well, I'm slightly reluctant to ask you to do this. I don't know really. I mean, would you mind outlining a little bit of your story, just so we can have a bit of context for this? Would that be all right, Fiona?
Yeah, so I went into a care home when I was 13. As soon as I entered that care home, we were targeted by men. This care home was notorious for being targeted by grooming gangs for many, many years. It had been brought up on documentaries and stuff even before I was placed in this care home. So it had a long history of this stuff. Within a matter of weeks of entering the care home, I was documented as actively being groomed and being at high risk of child sexual exploitation. This continued for almost 5 years until I was 18. I fell pregnant at 15. Inside the actual care home to an 18-year-old boy that also lived in the care home. They took my child from me because they said I was exposed to a paedophile ring and it was an unsafe environment for a child, yet they left me there. At one point, I was basically living in the house with these men. The police would come and pick me up and take me back. They called me a prostitute, told me I was what was wrong with society, that I was the reason things were going downhill. They threatened to lock me up in a secure unit instead of these men. These men were actually documented for over 20 years as abusing children. They'd had harbouring notices for multiple different children over the years. There was over 7 instances of the serious case report found where I had actually disclosed serious assault, sexual assault or rape to the services, and they had never investigated, including me turning up covered in blood, telling them I'd been raped, and they never even rang the police. Even I got spiked at 14 and had a fit, and they left me without medical attention. They just left me laid in the bed for 3 days. There was no care there at all from any of them. They didn't care. The police actually even took me back to the men's house once, dropped me off and told them to have fun with me. The way they spoke to the men about stuff, they basically explained if I signed myself out of care, the police would not have to come and find me anymore. So that made the men come up with an idea of me getting signed out of care so they could take me to Kashmir. And that was upon conversations with police officers.
To take you to Kashmir in Pakistan?
Yes, to take me to Kashmir in Pakistan. Luckily, they couldn't because I never signed myself out of care, but that after a conversation with police officers, that was then the men's plan. So I actually exposed it to Look North anonymously in 2014 after multiple times of reporting my abuse and it never been investigated. That started an investigation, and in 2019, 9 men were convicted for 132 years for 22 counts of abuse against me. There was another girl involved in the trial, involved with one of the perpetrators. The other 8 was exclusively in relation to me. And then a serious case review followed where it was evident my care records had gone missing. The whole thing's been a mess from the beginning, all of it. And the fact that I sat in the Home Office with Jess Phillips and I told her all of this, plus more, a lot more. I could tell you so much more, but we'd be here forever. She knows all of this, and then she's publicly just tried making me out to be a liar. She also knows I received death threats and abuse off of the Pakistani community quite a lot. I get accused of being paid by Israel, which I find quite funny. So for her to publicly try and make me out to be a liar knows that she's just put me open to receiving abuse and hate from the people that follow her or don't believe in the grooming gang scandal in general. I find it very, very unprofessional what's happened today.
It's devastating on so many different levels, what you've just said there. And I admire, I mean, there isn't a word in the English language that I can use to articulate how much I admire you putting your head above the parapet, coming on, talking about things, opening up and making sure that the actual truth can come out there. I'm going to ask you a final question, and just let's try to be relatively quick with this if we can. Based on what Shabana Mahmood has said there in that statement, she's left the door open, Fiona, for you to want to go back to be a part of this inquiry if you want. Is there any way of that happening?
if Jess Phillips resigns and Sabakesa gets taken off as victim liaison, and I'm quite glad that she has specified that this is going to be targeted at grooming gangs, that it is going to follow what has been outlined by Louise Casey. That's reassuring now. I think if we hadn't gone public, that wouldn't have been confirmed, but it has been. I also think they need to now do a lot more work into choosing the right chair, and then maybe I would reconsider. But without that happening, I don't think that I could engage with this and feel secure.
Do you think we need a chair who's not from Britain? Do you think we need a complete outsider?
Yes, as I said earlier, a judge from the Commonwealth sounds good. A country that follows the same legal morals as our country, that understands our processes. Somewhere like Australia, Canada, somewhere like that. I don't mind them having people like Jean Gamble on as advisory roles towards an independent chair of that stature.
But not
having
not
a police officer not in charge of this inquiry.
Yeah, a police officer as well who's got links to the Labour Party reportedly as well. It's not a particularly good thing. It would seem to make obvious sense to not have that. Fiona, look, thank you. Honestly, I just want to thank you so much, and I hope we can stay in touch as well. We will stay in touch, and I wish you all the very, very, very best. It's Fiona Goddard there, who is a grooming gang survivor. Thank you.